So you're doing online dating? You need to hold up. Before you swipe again, watch these 8 stories.
I matched with Ashley on Hinge in April. She seemed different from other matches. She had this energy about her, always talking about adventures and road trips she'd taken. Her photos showed her at different beaches, hiking trails, and small towns. She said she loved exploring new places. We talked for about 2 weeks and got along really well. She worked as a photographer, which explained all the travel. One night she asked if I'd ever been to this small coastal town about 3 hours north. I hadn't. She said it was beautiful, and we should go for a weekend. Just drive up Saturday morning, spend the day exploring, maybe stay overnight, and come back Sunday. I thought it was kind of forward for a first date, but also exciting. Why not? We picked a weekend 3 weeks out to give us time to plan. She said she knew a great little inn there and would book us separate rooms. She insisted on handling the reservation since she'd stayed there before. The weeks went by, and we kept talking every day. She'd send me photos of the town from her previous trips. Old lighthouses, rocky beaches, little seafood restaurants. I was actually getting excited about it. She seemed genuine, and the trip sounded fun. The Friday before we were supposed to leave, she texted me the address of the inn and said to meet her there around noon on Saturday. She was driving up Friday night to get there early and take some photos in the morning light. I said that sounded perfect. Saturday morning I packed a bag and started the drive. It was a nice day. The drive took me through some small towns I'd never seen before. When I finally got close, I pulled up the address she'd sent me on my GPS. It took me down this narrow road surrounded by trees. I drove for about 10 minutes seeing nothing but woods. Then the GPS said I'd arrived at my destination. I was in the middle of nowhere. There was no inn, no buildings at all, just trees, and an old dirt road that looked like it hadn't been used in years. I checked the address again, thinking I'd typed it wrong. Nope, this was it. I tried calling Ashley. It rang and went to voicemail. I texted her saying I think she gave me the wrong address. No response. I sat there for about 20 minutes trying to figure out what to do. Maybe she made a mistake. I searched online for inns in the area. There were a few, but none at this address. I called one of them asking if they had a reservation under Ashley's name. They didn't. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Ashley. "Did you make it?" She responded immediately. "Look around. I left something for you." That creeped me out. I looked at the woods surrounding me. I wasn't about to go wandering around in there. I texted her saying this wasn't funny, and asking what was going on. She didn't respond. I tried calling again. This time it went straight to voicemail like her phone was off. I decided to just leave. This whole thing felt wrong. As I put my car in reverse, I noticed something on my windshield, a piece of paper tucked under the wiper. I got out and grabbed it. It was a printed photo. Me pumping gas that morning before I left. Someone had taken it from across the parking lot. On the back it said, "Keep driving north." My hands started shaking. I got back in my car and locked the doors. I looked around but didn't see anyone. Just empty woods. I pulled out my phone to call the police when another text came through. "You're not very good at following directions." I didn't respond. I started driving back the way I came. My phone kept buzzing with texts, but I ignored them. When I finally hit the main highway, I pulled over and checked the messages. They were all from Ashley's number, but they didn't sound like her anymore. Wrong way. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I planned this whole thing for us. I blocked the number and drove straight home. The 3-hour drive felt like forever. When I got back to my apartment, I checked Hinge. Ashley's profile was deleted. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made me jump. Around 2 a.m. I heard my phone buzz, even though I'd put it on silent. I checked it. There was an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line. I opened it. It was a list. A detailed list of everywhere I'd stopped on my drive that morning. The gas station with the timestamp. The drive-through coffee place. Even the rest stop where I'd gotten out to stretch for 5 minutes. Someone had followed me the entire way. The email ended with one line. "See you next weekend." I filed a police report the next day. They took it seriously since someone had clearly been following me. They tried to trace the email, but it was sent from some anonymous service. They checked with the local police near where that address was. There was nothing there, just abandoned property. I stayed with my brother for 2 weeks after that. I changed my phone number, and the police never found out who Ashley really was, or if that was even a real person. I downloaded Bumble in March because my coworker wouldn't stop bugging me about it. I'm not really the dating app type, but I figured I'd give it a shot. After a few days of swiping, I matched with this girl named Emma. She had 4 or 5 photos on her profile. Brown hair, pretty smile, seemed normal. Her bio said she was a graphic designer. We started chatting and she was really easy to talk to. We had the same taste in movies and she made me laugh with her jokes about her crazy coworkers. After talking for about 3 days, she asked if we could switch to phone calls instead of texting. She said she hated typing on her phone and preferred actually talking to people. I thought that was kind of refreshing, honestly. Everyone just texts these days. So that night around 9 p.m. she called me. Her voice was soft and friendly. We talked for almost 2 hours about everything. Our families, our jobs, places we wanted to travel. It felt natural. When we hung up, I was smiling like an idiot. We talked on the phone every night after that. Sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 3. I started looking forward to her calls. She'd tell me about her day and I'd tell her about mine. It was nice having someone to talk to like that. About a week in, I suggested we meet up for dinner. She got quiet for a second and then said she'd love to, but she was really busy with work. Big project coming up. Maybe next week. I said sure, no problem. Next week came and I brought it up again. She said she was dealing with some family stuff and wasn't really in the right headspace for a first date. She wanted to wait until things calmed down. I understood. Life gets crazy sometimes. But then it was 3 weeks of phone calls, and still no meeting. Every time I suggested it, she had a reason why she couldn't. I started thinking maybe she was just stringing me along or wasn't actually interested. But she kept calling me every single night. Why would she do that if she didn't want to meet? One night during our call, I told her straight up that I really wanted to see her in person. She went silent for a long time. Then she said okay. She'd meet me that Saturday at a park near downtown. There was a coffee cart there, and we could walk around. Saturday came and I got to the park early. I texted her that I was there by the coffee cart like we planned. She texted back saying she was running a few minutes late. No problem. I ordered a coffee and waited. 15 minutes passed. I texted her again. She said she was almost there, just finding parking. I scanned the parking lot, but didn't see anyone who looked like her photos. Another 10 minutes. I called her this time. It rang twice and then she answered. But she didn't say hello. I just heard breathing. Then I heard my own voice. Me saying hello, Emma, coming through the phone like an echo. I pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it, confused. Then I heard her voice, but it sounded wrong. Deeper, like someone trying to disguise their voice. Turn around, Tyler. I spun around. There were families walking their dogs, couples on benches, kids on the playground. Nobody was looking at me or on their phone. Not Emma's voice anymore. A man's voice. I felt my stomach drop. I started walking fast toward my car. The voice laughed through the phone. You look scared. Why are you scared? I thought you wanted to meet me. I hung up and got in my car. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition. As I pulled out of the parking spot, my phone rang again. Same number. I didn't answer. It kept ringing, over and over. I blocked the number. Then a text came through from a different number. You can't block me. I drove home way too fast and locked every door and window in my apartment. My phone buzzed with another text. I have your address, Tyler. I've had it for a while now. I called the police. They came and took a report, but said since nobody had actually threatened me or shown up at my house, there wasn't much they could do. They told me to keep my doors locked and call if anything else happened. That night I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. The next morning I found something that made my blood run cold. There was a small package on my doorstep. Inside was a USB drive with my name written on it in permanent marker. I took it to my friend's house because I was too scared to look at it alone. We plugged it into his laptop. There was one video file on it. It was recordings, audio recordings of all our phone conversations. Every single one, all saved and labeled with dates and times. There were over 20 files. I moved out of that apartment 2 days later. I'm staying with my parents now, until I find a new place. I changed my phone number and deleted all my social media accounts. I matched with Sarah on Hinge back in October. She seemed perfect on paper. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Worked as a nurse. Loved hiking and craft beer. Her photos looked natural. Nothing overly filtered. We hit it off right away in the messages. After about a week of talking, she suggested we meet up for coffee on a Saturday afternoon. She picked a small cafe downtown that I'd never been to before. I got there around 2 p.m. like we planned and texted her that I'd arrived. No response. I waited outside for about 15 minutes, checking my phone every few seconds. I messaged her again asking if she was close. Still nothing. I went inside and ordered a coffee, thinking maybe she was running late. I sat at a table by the window so she could see me when she showed up. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. I was about to leave when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Turn around. I looked behind me. Nobody was paying attention to me. Just other people on their laptops or talking with friends. I texted back asking who this was. Another message came through. I'm watching you right now. You look nervous. My heart started pounding. I looked around the cafe again, trying to see if anyone was staring at me. Nobody was. I tried calling the number, but it went straight to voicemail. Then another text. Go to the bathroom. Now. Maybe I was just confused. But I got up and walked to the single bathroom in the back of the cafe. I locked the door behind me. My phone buzzed again. Look in the mirror. I looked at myself in the mirror above the sink. I looked terrified. That's when I noticed something. Written in the condensation on the mirror, like someone had used their finger, were the words, "I'm closer than you think." But the bathroom was empty. The mirror had been clear when I walked in. I know it was. I unlocked the door and practically ran out of the cafe. I got in my car and locked the doors immediately. My phone kept buzzing with texts from that unknown number. Why did you leave? I wasn't done talking to you. You're rude, Daniel. They used my full name, not the shortened version I used on Hinge, my legal name that I'd never told Sarah. I blocked the number and checked Hinge. Sarah's profile was completely gone. Like it had never existed. I drove straight home and didn't leave my apartment for the rest of the weekend. On Monday morning, I found an envelope taped to my apartment door. No stamp, no return address, just my name written on the front. Inside was a printed photo of me sitting in that cafe, taken from outside through the window. I was looking down at my phone. On the back, someone had written in red pen, "Next time, don't ignore me." I filed a police report, but they said without any actual threats or crimes committed, there wasn't much they could do. I changed all my passwords and deleted every dating app on my phone. That was 2 months ago. Last week I got a friend request on Facebook from a profile with no photo. The name was just Sarah. When I clicked on it, the profile was completely empty except for one post. It was the same photo of me in the cafe. I haven't accepted the request. I'm too scared to even block it because then whoever this is will know I saw it. I keep my curtains closed now. And I haven't been back to that part of town since. I still don't know who Sarah really was, or if Sarah was ever even a real person at all. All I know is that someone went through a lot of trouble to get me to that cafe that day, and I have no idea what would have happened if I'd stayed longer. My name's Daniel, and this is the closest I've ever been to feeling like my life could have ended over a dating app. It started with a match on Hinge. Her name was Laura. Her profile looked completely normal. Just a few photos of her with friends. One at a coffee shop, one holding a dog. Nothing flashy, nothing too perfect. She said she worked in a bookstore, loved hiking and collected old vinyl records. Her messages were slow, thoughtful, like she was actually interested in conversation. No red flags, at least at first. We talked for about a week. Small talk, jokes, music recommendations. She was funny and smart. On Wednesday, she suggested we meet for coffee at a small cafe near my apartment. Nothing fancy, or late at night, just a casual meet. I agreed. The day came. I was nervous, but excited. I arrived early, grabbed a table near the window, and waited. Laura showed up 10 minutes later. She looked like her photos. Small smile, glasses, dark hair tied back. She waved, and I waved back. We started talking. At first everything seemed normal. Music, books, nothing out of place. Then, after about 15 minutes, something subtle changed. She started glancing toward the door every few seconds, like she was waiting for someone else. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she was just paranoid, or had someone texting her. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "You don't mind if I leave for a moment, do you?" I said sure. She went outside. 5 minutes passed, 10. Then I heard footsteps back toward the cafe. I looked up. It was her, but something was off. She wasn't alone. A man walked right behind her. Tall, wearing a hoodie, face partially covered. They weren't holding hands. They weren't even together like a couple. He was clearly following, watching. She didn't notice him, or maybe she did. She came inside and sat back down as if nothing had happened. I asked casually, "Was that someone you know?" Her laugh sounded too loud, forced. "Oh, that. Don't worry about him. He's my friend's cousin. He's just weird about people staring." I nodded, but my stomach sank. Something didn't feel right. We continued talking, but I couldn't shake the feeling. Then she suggested we take a short walk to a nearby park. I agreed. We left the cafe together. The streets were empty, the night quiet. As soon as we got to a narrow alley leading into the park, the man from before stepped out from the shadows, not running, just walking slowly, deliberately. Laura froze. I froze. "Don't worry," she said. "He's harmless." But he wasn't harmless. His eyes were fixed on me, and then casually, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a knife, small but shiny under the streetlight. My heart stopped. Laura said, "Just give him your wallet, calmly, don't make a scene." I realized then, I wasn't meeting a normal girl. I had been scammed, used. This wasn't a date, this was a setup. I handed over my wallet, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip it. She took it from me and handed it to the man. He looked at me, smiled, and then suddenly lunged toward the edge of the park, not at me but at something in the shadows. I didn't understand. Laura whispered, "Run." And I did. I bolted down the street, adrenaline pumping, heart hammering in my chest. Later, when I got back to my apartment, I called the police. They took my statement, but without a clear description of the man. He had been wearing a hoodie, face mostly hidden, and without proof of a crime beyond theft, they couldn't do much. The next day I checked her profile. Deleted. Gone. The cafe had no record of anyone named Laura reserving a table. They returned my wallet, left on my doorstep with a note. "Don't get curious next time." I never used Hinge again. I don't talk about it much. But sometimes, late at night, I think about what could have happened if I hadn't handed over my wallet so fast, or if I had hesitated for a second. I wasn't meeting a girl. I was meeting criminals, and they had planned everything. My name is Sophie, and I'll never forget the night I met him. I had been living alone in Melbourne for a few months after moving for work, and I started using a dating app called Bumble. Not seriously, just to meet someone new. That's when I came across a guy named Daniel. Daniel wasn't flashy. He didn't have exotic photos or fancy vacations on his profile. Just a few casual selfies, a picture of him at a coffee shop, and a short bio that said he liked movies, reading, and jogging. That was it. Simple. Normal. He messaged me first, polite, asking about my favorite films. Our conversation was slow, thoughtful, almost boring in the best way. He didn't push for anything. He didn't overwhelm me with messages. Honestly, it felt safe. After about 2 weeks of chatting, he suggested meeting for coffee at a cafe near the river. I agreed. It was mid-afternoon, and I didn't think twice. When I arrived, he was already there. He smiled, waved, and that was it. Conversation started normally. We talked about books, TV shows, and the weather. Nothing felt off at first. After a while, he suggested walking along a nearby trail that ran behind the cafe. I hesitated. "It's fine," he said. "It's safe, and it's quiet. You'll like it." The words seemed harmless enough, so I went along. The trail was narrow and mostly empty. He started asking very specific questions about my daily routine, what time I left for work, when I got home, who I lived with. At first I laughed it off, thinking it was small talk. But then the questions got more personal. "Do you ever walk this trail alone at night? Do you lock your doors when you're home?" My stomach turned. I slowed down. I started feeling a prickle in the back of my neck. "I think I should head back," I said. He stepped closer. "Why? I just want to show you something." There was a strange insistence in his voice. Not joking, not friendly. Something controlling. I tried to move past him. That's when he grabbed my arm lightly at first, but tight enough to make me stop. "Don't go," he said. That calm tone, like I was the problem for wanting to leave, made me freeze. I tried pulling away. He tightened his grip. Panic set in. I realized I was trapped on this narrow path with no one around. He was smiling, but it wasn't friendly. It was calculated. He had planned this. "Relax," he said. "I just want to show you something." Please. I shook my head, terrified. Something snapped in me. I didn't want to be polite anymore. I tried yelling, but my voice faltered. He leaned closer, whispering, "It'll be fun, you'll see." I spotted a small branch on the ground and grabbed it, swinging it toward him. He dodged easily, but stepped back. I ran. My feet pounded against the dirt trail, heart hammering. He chased me. I could hear him behind me, calm, almost enjoying it. When I reached the end of the trail near a busy street, I turned, and he had vanished. My chest heaved. I called the police, reporting the incident, giving them the trail location, and describing his behavior, not his appearance. I realized looks didn't matter. It was his actions that made him dangerous. Police said they'd patrol the area. I went home, but I didn't feel safe. My front door, my hallway, my living room, everything felt exposed. The next day, Daniel messaged me. I froze when I saw his name. He didn't apologize. He didn't admit fault. He just sent a photo my apartment building, taken from the street. "You were very fast yesterday," the message read. "I almost caught you." My blood ran cold. He had been watching me. He knew where I lived. He had planned everything from the start. I blocked him immediately, but the messages didn't stop. They came from different numbers. Short, vague threats. "Next time I won't let you run. And you should have stayed with me." One even included the exact time I left for work, which meant he had been tracking me. I went to the police again, showing them everything. They said they could start an investigation, but that digital stalking was difficult to trace quickly. I had to protect myself in the meantime. I stayed with a friend that night. Every sound, every shadow felt like him. The apartment, the trail, the cafe. I imagined him everywhere. I couldn't focus at work. My friends warned me, "Don't go back online. Don't leave your house alone." But I had to continue living. A week later, I got a message that chilled me to the bone. "I know where you hide." No photo, no number, just that sentence. That night, I installed cameras around my apartment and changed every lock. I started taking different routes to work, never walking the same streets twice. Every time I looked out the window, I half expected him to be there. Then it escalated. One night, while I was on a video call with my sister, I noticed a figure standing across the street, just watching my building. I froze. My sister panicked, telling me to call the police immediately. I did. Officers arrived minutes later, and the figure ran. The investigation revealed the terrifying truth. Daniel wasn't just a stalker. He had a history of preying on women he met online, studying their routines, and planning encounters in isolated areas. Some victims had barely escaped. Some hadn't. He had been meticulously documenting their schedules, homes, and habits. I finally felt safe when he was arrested after police tracked him through a combination of location data, online activity, and witness statements. He had been using burner phones, fake emails, and multiple online profiles to avoid detection. Even after his arrest, I couldn't shake the fear. I started therapy, rebuilt my confidence, and slowly returned to normal life. But I learned a hard truth. Someone can seem perfectly normal online and still be a calculating predator in real life. Now, every time I walk down a quiet street, I feel the same tightness in my chest I felt that day. Every time I meet someone online, I check everything, ask questions, and never ignore my instincts. Because if I had hesitated, trusted him too much, or not acted fast, I might not be here today. The most important lesson I learned: danger isn't always obvious. It doesn't come in dark alleys at night with a knife. Sometimes it smiles politely at you, asks you about your favorite movies, and waits for the perfect moment to strike. I survived because I trusted my instincts, acted quickly, and didn't ignore the warning signs. My name is Hannah, and for a long time I believed catfishing stories were exaggerated, something people shared online to scare others, until I experienced one that still feels unreal even now. It started in a very ordinary way, through a local community forum where people shared advice, job postings, and neighborhood updates. And I never imagined that something meant to feel safe and local could turn into the most frightening experience of my life. I had posted asking for help finding a second-hand desk because I was working from home and my back was killing me from sitting at the kitchen table. A man replied within minutes, saying he had one he no longer needed and lived only a few streets away. His message was polite, normal, and focused entirely on logistics like size, condition, and price, which made me comfortable because there was no personal talk at all. We exchanged messages over 2 days, mostly about timing and pickup, and he suggested that since I didn't drive, he could deliver it to my place for a small extra fee. I hesitated at first, but agreed because it felt practical and reasonable, and he even suggested delivering it during the afternoon so it wouldn't be dark. He sent a photo of the desk in his garage, and it looked exactly like what I needed, worn but solid. Nothing felt strange, rushed, or suspicious, and I gave him my address without much thought, something I now regret deeply. On the day of delivery, he messaged saying he would be a little late because of traffic, which again felt normal and believable. When he arrived, he didn't come inside. He left the desk just inside the doorway and said he was in a hurry, which I appreciated at the time because it felt respectful. He left quickly, and the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes, leaving me with no reason to feel uneasy. That night, I received a message from him asking if the desk fit well and whether I needed help setting it up. I replied briefly, thanking him and saying everything was fine. He responded with a thumbs up emoji, and that should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Over the next few days, he kept messaging, not constantly, but enough to feel noticeable, asking small questions like whether my work-from-home setup was improving and whether my back pain had eased. I replied politely but didn't encourage conversation, and I assumed he was just being friendly. Then one evening, he sent a message saying he had accidentally left a small toolbox behind and asked if he could pick it up later that week. I knew there was no toolbox, but I doubted myself and checked anyway, feeling embarrassed for questioning it. There was nothing. I told him that, and instead of apologizing, he said maybe he left it in the van and laughed it off. Something about that exchange stayed with me, a faint unease that I couldn't explain. The next morning, I noticed that my wheelie bin had been moved closer to my gate, even though I hadn't taken it out. I told myself it was nothing, maybe council workers or a neighbor, but later that day, I received a message from him saying, "Your street gets really quiet early, doesn't it?" I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure how to respond, then replied with a neutral comment about it being a calm area. From that point on, the messages changed slightly in tone, becoming more observant and specific, mentioning things I hadn't told him, like when my lights were usually off or how often I worked late. I stopped replying altogether and blocked him, thinking that would solve it. It didn't. The messages started coming from different accounts on the same forum, all asking similar questions or referencing my post history in subtle ways. And then one evening, I received a handwritten note pushed through my letterbox saying, "You should have said goodbye properly." My hands shook so badly I dropped it on the floor. I called the police, but without direct threats, they told me to stay alert and report anything further. That night, I barely slept, checking the windows and doors repeatedly, feeling exposed in my own home. Around 4 a.m., I heard a sound near the side of the house, like someone moving slowly along the fence, and when I looked through the curtain, I saw a figure standing near my driveway, not trying to hide, just standing there as if waiting. I didn't scream, I couldn't. I froze, watching him stand there for what felt like forever before walking away calmly. The next morning, the police reviewed my security camera footage, and that was when things escalated quickly. The man wasn't the person from the forum photos at all. The photos belonged to someone else entirely, stolen from an unrelated profile. The real man had been using multiple fake identities across local platforms to track people through small harmless interactions like selling furniture or offering help. They arrested him 2 days later, after linking him to several similar cases, all involving women living alone who had interacted with him through local online platforms. In his flat, police found notebooks filled with addresses, daily routines, and observations, including mine, written in disturbing detail. He had never planned to break in immediately. He liked watching, learning, and slowly making his presence known, enjoying the fear as it grew. In court, he admitted to catfishing dozens of people using different names and faces, choosing those who seemed polite, trusting, and unlikely to cause a scene. He said it wasn't about money or relationships, it was about access. I moved out of that house shortly after and deleted every local account I had ever used. Even now, when someone offers help too quickly or knows too much without being told, my body reacts before my mind does. I learned that catfishing isn't always about romance or love, and sometimes the most terrifying predators don't rush or threaten because patience is what gives them control. My name is Lauren, and this is something I avoided talking about for a long time because every time I tried to explain it, people would ask what I did wrong or why I didn't notice sooner, as if predators always announced themselves clearly before they crossed the line. The truth is, nothing about this felt dangerous in the beginning, and that is what still scares me the most. I met him through a local community forum, not a dating app, not social media, but a neighborhood discussion board where people posted about lost pets and casual meetups like walking groups or book swaps. I had commented on a thread asking for recommendations for evening jogging routes that felt safer, and a man replied with a thoughtful answer about lighting, foot traffic, and times to avoid, which felt helpful rather than personal. We exchanged a few messages privately about fitness routines and staying consistent, and eventually he mentioned he had recently moved back to the area after a breakup and was trying to rebuild his routine. There was nothing flirtatious about it, and because the forum wasn't built around dating, my guard was down in a way it wouldn't have been otherwise. After a few weeks of occasional conversation, he asked if I wanted to join a small group jog that met twice a week, and I agreed because it sounded structured and public. The first time I showed up, there were 3 other people, and everything felt normal. He was polite, quiet, and didn't push conversation beyond casual small talk. Over the next month, we saw each other regularly, and during that time he began messaging me more often outside the group chat, asking how my day was going or whether I planned to attend the next run. I answered when it felt natural and ignored messages when I was busy, never thinking that setting casual boundaries would be interpreted as rejection. One evening, after a run, he asked if I wanted to grab coffee, just the 2 of us, and I said no in the most straightforward way possible, explaining that I wasn't looking to turn group activities into anything more personal. He nodded, said he understood, and even thanked me for being honest, which made me believe that was the end of it. It wasn't. Within days, a new profile appeared on a different platform I used, following me, liking posts, and eventually sending a message that felt strangely familiar in tone, using phrases I recognized, even though the name and photos were different. The account belonged to a man who claimed to be new to town, struggling after a breakup, and looking to make genuine connections, and I didn't immediately connect the dots because the story felt common and harmless. We spoke briefly, but something about the conversation felt rehearsed, as if he already knew what topics would keep me engaged, and which ones I would avoid. When I stopped replying, the messages became more frequent, but never aggressive, always framed as concern or understanding. Then things escalated in a way that finally made the connection impossible to ignore. He referenced details about my jogging schedule that I had never shared on that platform, mentioning times and routes accurately enough to make my stomach turn. When I confronted the account directly, asking how he knew those things, the profile went silent, and the next day I received a message from the original man on the community forum, asking if everything was okay because I seemed distant lately. That was the moment I understood what was happening. He hadn't created a fake identity to meet me randomly. He had created it because he lost access to me the moment I said no, and the catfish profile was his way of regaining proximity without having to respect my boundary. I blocked both accounts, stopped attending the jogging group, and reported everything. But the behavior didn't stop. Anonymous accounts continued to view my stories. Messages arrived asking why I was being cruel when he had done nothing wrong. And once, disturbingly, I found a printed screenshot of my public post slipped under my flat door with a handwritten note asking me to please talk like adults. The police became involved after I documented everything, and the investigation revealed that he had used multiple accounts across platforms, adjusting his approach depending on where I blocked him, always maintaining plausible deniability by never threatening me outright. When he was finally confronted, his explanation was chilling in how ordinary it sounded. He said he felt led on, that my friendliness made him believe there was potential, and that cutting him off without discussion felt unfair to him. In his mind, creating new ways to reach me wasn't harassment, it was persistence, and persistence, he claimed, was romantic. A restraining order was issued, and he was removed from the community forum and jogging group permanently. I changed my routines, tightened my privacy, and learned a hard lesson about how entitlement can turn into obsession when someone believes access to you is something they deserve. What stays with me isn't the fear of being followed, but the realization that all of this began not because I was careless, but because I said no politely and expected that to be enough. Now I know that for some people, rejection isn't an answer, it's a challenge, and the most dangerous ones are the ones who never raise their voice, never threaten you, and never believe they're doing anything wrong. My name is Daniel, and I still don't know how to explain because it wasn't a ghost story or some dream that fades when you wake up. It was slow and real and built on normal days, normal chats, and one bad decision that felt harmless at the time. It started during a period when my life felt quiet in a bad way, the kind of quiet where every day feels the same and nights feel too long. So I downloaded a running app that also had a small social side where people shared routes, times, and short messages, mostly harmless stuff like "great morning run" or "fog was heavy today." And that's where I first noticed her profile because she commented on one of my posts about running near the old canal path. She didn't flirt, didn't ask personal things. She just said she ran there too and warned me about the fog getting thick near the water, and that felt normal enough to reply. And from there the conversation grew slowly in a way that felt natural, like two people who happened to share the same routine and complained about the same small things like sore legs, bad weather, and empty streets before sunrise. We never rushed into anything, and that's what made it feel safe, because she didn't ask for photos, didn't ask where I lived exactly, and didn't push for calls right away. And when we did start talking on the phone after weeks of messages, the conversations felt live and imperfect, with pauses, laughs, and moments where we talked over each other like real people do. I trusted it because nothing felt dramatic, and maybe because I wanted something to trust. And she slowly became part of my daily routine, someone I spoke to after runs while cooling down, someone who listened when I talked about work stress and family stuff, and someone who shared enough about her own life to feel real without oversharing. The first strange thing was the fog. Every time I ran near the canal, especially on mornings after I'd talked to her late the night before, the fog felt thicker than usual, heavy enough that sounds felt close and far at the same time. And more than once I had the feeling that my footsteps weren't the only ones moving in rhythm, but I told myself it was just my breathing echoing, or my mind playing tricks after early starts. Then small things started lining up in ways I couldn't explain easily, like her mentioning a fallen tree near the path before I ever told her about it, or asking if I'd changed my shoes because my pace looked different on the app, which felt observant but also strange because she shouldn't have been watching that closely. I brushed it off because people notice patterns, and I didn't want to be paranoid. The real fear began the morning I was running through the fog and heard my name spoken softly behind me, not shouted, not playful, just calm, like someone testing if I'd turn around. And when I did, there was nothing there except fog and the slow ripple of water, and my app still showed my route like normal, no other runners nearby. When I told her about it later that day, she didn't laugh or brush it off like I expected. She went quiet for a moment, and then said maybe I should switch routes for a while. And there was something in her voice that sounded less concerned and more careful, like she was choosing her words. Over the next week, the feeling of being followed didn't stop, and once I even saw a shape moving just beyond where the fog thinned, matching my pace no matter how fast I ran. And every time I pushed harder, my chest burned and my legs screamed, but the sound behind me stayed steady, patient. I finally decided to meet her in person, because part of me believed that putting a real face to the voice would break the tension and prove I was just letting fear get ahead of logic, and she agreed quickly, which should have comforted me, but somehow made my stomach tighten instead. We chose a busy cafe in town during daylight, nothing hidden or quiet, and when I arrived and waited, checking my phone every few seconds, I noticed a man sitting alone near the window who seemed too interested in the street outside, watching people pass with a stillness that felt wrong. When my phone buzzed, it was her saying she was already there and asking if I could see her, and before I could reply, the man near the window stood up and walked straight toward me, smiling like we were old friends. He said my name the same way it had been said in the fog, calm and certain, and that's when everything inside me went cold, because his voice was the voice I'd trusted, the one I'd spoken to for months, the one that knew my routine, my fears, my exact running times. He didn't grab me or threaten me. He just sat down across from me like this was normal and explained, slowly and clearly, that he had lost someone years ago after being falsely accused of stalking, and the case had fallen apart but his reputation never recovered, and he had become obsessed with patterns, with watching how people moved and trusted, and proving to himself that closeness could be built without force. He said I wasn't chosen at random, that my public routes, my predictable schedule, and my openness made me a perfect test, and that he followed me during runs not to hurt me, but to feel present, to feel seen by someone who didn't know the truth. I wanted to stand up and leave, but my body felt heavy, and when I asked why he let it go this far, why scare me, why call my name in the fog, he said he needed to know if I would notice, because noticing meant I mattered. I left that cafe shaking, and I reported everything, and the police took it seriously because he didn't deny it when questioned, and because my app data, messages and call logs told a clear story, and that should have been the end of it. But even now, when I run in the fog, I feel my pace change without meaning to, like my body remembers being matched step for step, and sometimes, just for a second, I hear my name carried softly through the air, and I don't turn around anymore, because I know some things don't need to be seen to be real.